May the 30th, 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight. And my name is Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclear proctologist.org. And you can call in at 709-589-4406. I brought myself into the picture, right? That was supposed to be the number I was bringing in. Oops, wrong site. Hope everybody had a great day. We got a poll for everybody tonight that I forgot to hook up. So let me enlighten you for a few seconds. I'll just hook up the that's reactor 3. Just give me a second. Alrighty, my apologies. Me big apologies. We got a poll for everybody tonight. Is Fukushima 4 reactors and 8 nuclear fuel pools that melted down and the radioactive fallout from that an extinction level event? And so we're going to talk about the story of Fukushima. We're going to talk about an absolute and extinction level event playing out. And the cause is Fukushima. And we can quantify those assertions many different ways. And currently now, the official story is that never melted down. That never happened. That's the International Atomic Energy Agency saying that, not me. They're saying that never happened. And what could be the catalyst for them to say that reactor 3 didn't melt down? Which was a Medusa, right? And so when they tore away the remains of it, you got to put into consideration how big are the buildings. So you can see a guy stood up right there. These are 150 feet wide and 150 feet long. They're, which is 50 meters, 15 stories wide. It's 19-story tall buildings, 190 feet, 65 meters tall. And so that top part you're looking at up right there is this bottom part right here. So there's 4 levels to these buildings. Each of these buildings are exactly the same. So I'm hoping that will give you scale. Look at the construction going on in the background, right? So they built this off-site, then they went to Fukushima and reassembled it. And the idea, this is reactor 1. This was the Kevlar sarcophagus. So everything is done by gravity. So there's nobody can go there and do it because it's a lethal dose. It lost its fuel pool right away. It was an incredible explosion. Reactor 1 over there and reactor 3 here. And I showed you reactor 3, which is this one right here. That's the explosion right here for reactor 3. And reactor 1, they built this to hide it from sight. They didn't want anybody looking down into the fuel pools. So now officially none of this happened. As of June the 13th last year, this didn't happen. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the worldwide media, despite reporting on it for 12 years, last year moved the goalposts to the twilight zone. Oh. Now I just got back in the house. I've been working on the Zodiac and the trailer, doing the final job. So we got that finished. We actually got that finished. Let me give you a quick glimpse. I got some videos and pictures for after the show here. So I'm busted up pretty good. Had a long day. We got her done though, and that's the end of it. So that's the transom on the back of the little Zodiac. That's pretty rough, right? You can see, like, as soon as you touch it, it just breaks apart. So the whole thing is rotten. And everything else is rubber, right? So what I had to do was rebuild it. So that was about halfway through today. And even right there, that's rock. That's as solid as you can hit that with the claws of the hammer. You can't put a dent into it. That's almost bulletproof right now. But what I done after, so this was just fiberglass. So I rebuilt the whole back end with fiberglass. But I'll show you the videos and everything else. I had to go down and pick up another bunch of stuff today to finish the job. Okay, so the official story was such a crazy story, right? It's just such an insane story to try to tell. But it's not insane. It's insane because of what they done and what their propaganda actually is. The International Atomic Energy is your worst nightmare. It really, really is. Rafael Grossi really is a monster of unbelievable proportions. So this was June the 13th, 2023. Science Outweighs Irrational Reasoning. Young John Nill. He's the author, is a professor at the Department of Nuclear and Quantum Engineering at the CAST in South Korea. This is a very prestigious institution. So he's a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering. Try wrap your mind around that statement. He's a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering. Now, he says nothing got out of these buildings whatsoever. And that was the first English version we had of that story. He said that the 1.37 million tons of water stored in the plant only had about 2.2 grams of tritium. Nothing got out, only tritium. And he said if you discharged everything from these destroyed buildings into the... This is a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering in South Korea. He said if everything got out of it, it would be like throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. So he said the nuclear meltdowns were equal to 3 grams of sugar. Now, the food was banned by 55 countries and 14 prefectures, which I highlighted for you there. And the farmers are growing the food right alongside the nuclear meltdowns in the abandoned no-go death zone, right alongside of millions of one-ton bags of radiation. So the story is the craziest story conceivable. This is a plutonium-239 dispersal based on TEPCO's official numbers. So this is after 20 days up right there. Of plutonium-231 covering the planet, coating the planet. And so for a professor of quantum engineering to come out and tell you nothing got out of these buildings, hopefully that gets your interest. Now, there's other people who will tell you nothing got out of the buildings. And in order to tell, this is reactor 4. So this was the first cover-up they done at Fukushima on this level, where the media, which never went to Japan ever, claimed that they were at the nuclear meltdown. I personally don't believe they were there because they have 70 reactors in the United States that are identical. And this is a nuclear meltdown. Nobody goes there. This is no-go zone. And so I'm going to play this clip that I chopped out 10 years ago, in 2013. And this is a fraction of the media pretending they're in the fuel pool 140 feet above the stump you see to the left. Visible fuel pool.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,600 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
Well, like, the building doesn't exist. And obviously that's coordinated by the International Atomic Energy Agency. There was 865,000 extra cancers. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody is diagnosed, for instance. This is in the first year. But cancer is a fraction of the illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses that'll manifest from an event like this. So when you see a spike of that, this is incredible numbers we're talking about. So they're gone all out. They've been doing this for 80 years to you, right? Oh, it's like a banana and walking in the sunshine and flying on an airplane. But we have videos of Reactor 1 exploding and Reactor 3 exploding. We actually have the videos. But we don't have the video of Reactor 4 exploding, which is right alongside of Reactor 3 and Reactor 1. So how can you have... Now, officially, they do get the videos. They just won't release them. And so they pretended that they were in the fuel pool of a building that don't exist. So there was around eight reactor cores in the fuel pool and one. And the reactor, of course, when they're doing maintenance, they never take all the fuel out of the reactor core. At best, they're going to take, because they're doing a fuel change, right? At the same time, they're probably going to do 11,000 different facets of maintenance around the site. And so only about a third at best of the fuel is going to come out at any given time. So that meant 2/3 of the reactor core was still in the reactor. And when you look at the building, it's not hard to comprehend that the building doesn't exist, right? So when they talk about 2.2 grams of tritium is all that's in the 1,000 tanks, that's the official story. Which is, that's equal to double that coin. Now, when you look at the buildings, it's pretty clear everything is gone, because you're honest, right? But all the universities, all the international, all the regulatory agencies, all the government official narrative is that never happened as of last year. They just wiped the slate clean. Now, the reason they've done that is because this is an extinction level event. The radioactive fallout quickly covers the entire planet. And I'm going to bring you some pictures. We also, now we're going to start doing more research expeditions. We got the next 5 days of rain, but I don't think that's going to stop me. Neptunium-239 dispersion, North America. I didn't work like a dog for the last couple of days to get defeated by the rain. I really didn't. So this is a dispersal of Neptunium-239. That model is based on 20 days up in your top left-hand corner. This is forever stuff, right? It's got a half-life of 250,000 years or something. It's got 10 half-lives. When you add them up, that's 250,000 years, rather. So it's not going away. Okay, so there's a lot of facets to this story to cover. And we're basically just going to cover the story of Fukushima. It's a terrible story. And the cover-up is even worse. The cover-up is unbelievable. And you got species emaciated showing up everywhere. Whales won't stop killing themselves in New Zealand. That headline didn't show up because it's normal. It showed up because it's not normal, right? So when you say doomsday-like radiation release And this was May the 5th, 2012. If there was a fire in the pool at Unit 4, it would be a global catastrophe. Well, that's Reactor 4. It's a global catastrophe. You got 1 million atoms of Xenon-133 study covering the entire planet. You got 20 million particles, which is even worse, of iodine-131 per liter falling on the United States and Canada. That's a Canadian study, but it says fell on the United States, even though it's a Canadian study. This is another Canadian study from Ottawa. West Coast hit with 220 million atoms per liter of iodine-129 in the rain. Now, we had an endless amount of die-off stories post-Fukushima. Not pre-Fukushima, but post-Fukushima. And so we decided to launch research expeditions. Now, I'm going to go through some of those headlines with you in a second. And we wanted to go out and see ourselves, what we can see, right? Hang on, wait for it. We may be on the precipice of a major extinction event. Now, I'm not the only person calling this an extinction event by far. There was a lot of dissenting voices originally. On the West Coast, very sick, very emaciated. The food supply is being killed off. 2015, I was on the ocean doing research expeditions during this. Most likely they were quoting the stuff I was doing. Mind-blowing die-off of seabirds on the way from California to Alaska. So from California to Alaska is the North American continent's Pacific coastline we're talking about. It's unprecedented. Every bird we're seeing is starving to death. Bizarre die-off on the West Coast, an animal emergency. Right, there's record numbers of deaths declared an unusual mortality event by the government. Babies being found severely emaciated, sickened by parasites. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Babies being found severely emaciated. Countless dead birds reported in the Pacific off the U.S. coast. Nothing will eat the bodies. Think about that. Nothing will eat the bodies. The fish are not there. All of them are starving. And so this was the catalyst for us to go out and do research, a lot of these headlines. Alarms raised on the West Coast over unprecedented die-off of nearly endangered marine mammals. More have washed up in the last few months during all of recorded history combined. Carts filled with emaciated dead bodies. Pacific Ocean turning into a desert off California. Entire generations of baby sea lions dying. It's incredible. It's so unusual, and there's no explanation for it. And I expect the same thing to happen again next year. Continued trend of whales washing ashore. Animals sick, starving, emaciated. Too weak to swim. Too weak to get out of the way of a ship. Hemorrhagings. Animals sick, starving, emaciated. Sardines, crayfish disappeared from the Pacific Ocean. Not from California, not from Canada, but from the Pacific Ocean. They're a keystone species. They just vanished like the 8 billion plus crabs in Alaska last year. Just got up and disappeared. Marine mammals are starving. One thing all these have in common is they're post-Fukushima, they're after Fukushima. Marine mammals are starving, struggling to survive on the West Coast. Strandings in past 5 weeks already exceeds what's normally seen for an entire year. And this must have been 2016, 2017 or something. Because pre-Fukushima, none of this, we'd never see headlines like this. Marine mammals starving. And it's 2015. Much larger than anything on record. All of these are unprecedented, and all of them are post-Fukushima. Animals are basically dying on the beaches, like walking skeletons. They're so hungry they gone on rocks. The skin is hanging off, extremely unusual. And this was Noah's model. I'm going to speed it up for you. This is based on 40 days of radioactive fall of the cesium. But this is based on venting. But it's just another plume model so you can wrap your mind around how it actually works. Extremely emaciated. Sick and emaciated. Killer whales dying, sick and emaciated. Of course, and killer whales they eat every species, whatever they want. They just go ahead and eat. Marine birds are disappearing in the Pacific Northwest. This is true now for the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans and Antarctica and significant ecological shift crashes in species, many species. Something is happening on a big level, but what it is, herring problems may be far worse, which is another keystone species. Right, they feed a lot of different species and birds in it. Seals and sea lions starving to death, which means the food chain was broken. So many unhealthy washing ashore. Definitely a mystery. Notice none of these people are mentioning bird flus or anything else, climate change or anything like that. Because all of this rhetoric went into overdrive post-Fukushima. But it took a few years. They didn't want to acknowledge it. Acute hemorrhaging found in dead owls along the west coast. Mortality event began 8 months post-Fukushima. Very poor condition, badly emaciated when arriving in the Pacific Northwest. Anybody seen any patterns, or is that just me? Sea stars ripping themselves to pieces. I was actually traveling with a bunch of commercial divers. We're harvesting sea urchins and sea cucumbers. And all kinds of boats came up to me on one day in the Queen Charlotte, formerly known as the Queen Charlotte's Haida. And they were telling me, all of them telling me this horror story. All the starfish were ripping themselves to pieces. And you're talking about tens of thousands of hours collectively of divers. And they've never seen anything like it in their life. It blew their minds. And they were coming to see me because they knew this is what I was investigating. Another highly troubling report about what's going on in the Pacific. Millions of starfish melted away from Alaska to California. Fukushima radiation is not ruled out. Very, very different than anything ever seen before. Fish leaking pus covered in lesions. And lesions is a typical radiation poisoning. You'll see a lot of lesions in the victims and the animals. Deformed along the U.S. West Coast. Fishermen, nearly all the fish caught were affected. So nearly all the fish were bleeding, leaking pus, and had lesions. And I've never seen this. Some had pus all over their bodies. So many are showing illnesses. Environmental conditions could be a factor. These are conjectures, of course. It's Fukushima. Officials, historic crises along the U.S. West Coast were facing a fishery disaster and very never seen before things. Extinction threat for salmon, loss of sardines, squid, sea urchins, kelp, massive sea star deaths, marine mammal strandings, and more. The West Coast scientists, the West Coast bird die-off is the biggest ever recorded. Stomachs are completely empty. It's staggering, alarming, unheard of. Never seen anything like it. Unprecedented in size, scope, duration. Death could reach hundreds of thousands. It was actually 1.4 million common MERS, which dive 600 feet all day and feed on anchovies and squid and sardines and krill. And at the same time, there was 1 million Cassini auklets died. And they feed on zooplankton and phytoplankton, the microscopic animals. So you had 2 mass starvation events of different species from different spectrums of the food chain. Well, and I was doing research expeditions at that time, and I can attest, and we documented it, and we were spending 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean. 7,800 dead MERS on a 1 mile stretch of beach. No one's ever heard of anything like that. They're starving to death. 1.4 million of them, there was 1 million Cassini auklets. And the species reported include common thick-billed MERS, black-legged kittiwakes, they look like miniature seagulls, right? Horned and tufted puffins, winged gulls, and sooty and short-tailed shearwaters. And some of the mortalities were concurrent with die-off of whales and seals and sea lions and sea otters and fish mortalities. And all of these stories were just aggregated, and they aggregated all the different stories that reported on the event, that particular story, and brought it to one place. Kind of like what the Drudge Report does, right? But except much better. Ongoing fish famine along the fish famine. The dearth of food across the ocean. It's hard to watch. The worst wildlife die-off ever recorded anywhere on Earth, underway on the West Coast. It's now the whole planet. And we're not just talking marine die-offs. Yeah, it's a big deal. And there's many more species that are getting sick, facing the possibility of an extinction. The possibility of extinction. Sea creatures sick and dying or disappearing at an alarming rate all along the Pacific coast. Some wonder if it's followed from Fukushima. The New York Times. We may be on the precipice of a major extinction event in the marine wildlife. It's not just marine wildlife. And this is a model based out of France's government itself, backed up by a study of 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137. And this is only based on 15 days after the tsunami. Look at the fallout after 15 days. And so, like gas, oil, and coal emissions, they don't pulse energy every second for millions of years. But radiation, and these plumes covers the planet immediately, and they're forever. They pulse energy almost at the speed of light every second. So it's like an invisible snowstorm of gammas and alphas and betas and neutrons. So instead of snowfall, it's all these isotopes, atoms, and they're pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second, forever. That's called hell, by the way. Okay, so after going through all of these headlines and everything else, I created a lot of these headlines because I was the only person out there reporting on it. I was on the ocean for 4 to 5 months at a time. So a lot of those headlines were reporting on my findings. And what I'd done it for 6 years, and I had to repeat the expeditions each year to see if the species came back. And to call this madness, I don't think does it justice, really. And we hit this from every direction. I hit that thing from every direction. So we were going on the fact that we have radioactive fallout. The fallout covered the entire planet. And what I was going to do, because I was an ex-commercial diver, was I was going to go from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska and see if I can spot any discrepancies in the species. And so what I mean by that is These are before and after pictures. So I'm gone looking for those species to your left, and all I find is the species to the right, which is an extinction event. And so the reason I went back for 5 more years was to see if the species came back. And of course, the species didn't come back. And so this is an extinction event. They didn't come back. And this has trickled over to the entire planet. And I'm incredibly censored, but we still have to tell the story. I'm hated and vilified and demonized and smeared. I've been arrested multiple times. I've been given gag orders, 6 gag orders. We call them gold medals. And so the species to your left, these are before and after pictures. It's 2011 before 2011 to your left, and after 2011. And we have the studies of the radioactive fallout showing up. And I've been doing this for, since Fukushima. And I'm just trying to have a conversation and get the ball rolling, get the population educated. And this industry can't survive with a single descending voice out there. And so I am disappeared from the internet. And the species we're looking at is amazing. These are amazing. We've done the whole coastline. There should be up to 7,000 highly visible species in the tidal zones. And it's due to all these reactors and the fuel pools melting down. The radioactive fallout covers the entire planet. And all the studies have shown it's around 30 days. I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. 30 million one-ton bags. In 3% of the land in Fukushima Prefecture. And that 3% is where they wanted people to move back into. So this was the French government, the IRS, and French government experts on nuclear radiation risk under the Ministry of Defense, the Environment Industry Research. So this is the French government, and they're saying it's 1 million times normal. It's 1 million to 10 million atoms in the plume. And I showed you the other version of that plume. Because that one there is 9 days, right? Let me show you the 31-day plume. That's which is the same. This is the same government plume model. And so think of that as a snowstorm. It starts snowing, and eventually by day 20 the snow covers the entire planet, but it never stops coming out, and it never goes away, and it never melts. That's Fukushima. And what they're trying to do is pretend it didn't happen, and they're very successful. They have enormous amount of monetary, enormous amount of media and government agencies and bootlicking, cheerleading lapdogs to go out and pander to them. But we have a responsibility. This happened on our watch. This is our obligation. We are obligated. And not just because of your constitutions, your Bill of Rights, your Magna Cartas, but we are the stewards of this planet. We don't want to be. We think the planet can take care of itself, but the nuclear industry is counting on that. And these reactors are horrific compared to Chernobyl. In Chernobyl, they closed 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. And it's actually 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. 9,400 farms. 9,400 farms. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. 3,000 kilometers away. 9,400 farms. So, because of radioactive fallout. Now, what that meant, of course, What that meant was in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, the fact that, and let me find that for you, the fact that they closed 9,400 farms, there's different reports on it, right? I got to get past this before I can do anything. Here we go. Meant the water, the communities, the air, the land is permanently contaminated in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, right? I could barely stand up tonight when it was time to come in the studio. I'm busted up good, man. I screwed up. But I'm raring to go. We have an obligation to get out and tell the truth and tell the story. Here we go. And nobody else is going to do it. They might, but we can't take a chance. And so we've been at this right from the get-go. Sheep farmers still stuck under a Chernobyl cloud. In total, there's almost 9,000 farms and 4 million sheep were under restriction from radioactive fallout. It's actually 9,400 farms. And what that meant was all the water was... You can't just contaminate 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. So the radiation didn't make a big loop and come down and land on the farms. It coated Europe before it got to Ireland, Scotland, and United Kingdom, right? It had to coat. The radioactive fallout had to coat the planet, basically. And a big dose was in United Kingdom. Now, they had done, after Chernobyl, and Chernobyl is just a paper towel compared to Fukushima, but Chernobyl is brutal. It's brutal what it done to the whole planet. Okay, let's keep going here. What do we got here? The International Atomic Energy Agency admitted that there is no such thing as a safe level of anthropogenic man-made radiation, and that their allowable radiation standards are based on natural, not anthropogenic man-made radiation. And so they should be disbanded immediately. This is truly monstrous to suggest that their standards are based on natural and not based on real stuff. So you can put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. 200 million anthropogenic man-made atoms, and each atom pulses energy a second. That pulse is known as the Becquerel, and its abbreviation is BQ. So children with over 11 BQ becquerels a kilogram, which is basically 11 atoms per kilogram in their diet, start to see heart problems. So if you got 1 per kilogram, the insects are going to be destroyed. Right? If you got 1 per kilogram, the birds are going to be destroyed. The ecosystem, see? Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. And so for adults and large animals, 50 atoms a kilogram leads to irreversible lesions in the vital organ. Irreversible lesions in the vital organ. So your body is going to attack that for the rest of your life and try to repair it with white blood cells. So, I mean, it's going to attack it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life, trying to repair it, but it can't because of the fact radiation is there pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. So there's a clear cause and effect. The linear, and that's what the linear no threshold was all about, was the radiation is in your body, is pulsing like a foreign object. Your body has no autoimmune, neither does a bird or animal or insect or anything. They have no autoimmune trigger to defend against it. and their body attacks with white blood cells and builds a sarcophagus around it. We call it a tumor, right? And by the way, it's not illegal to poison you with radiation, because Congress and parliaments and the diets, the governments around the world don't have the authority to criminalize poisoning with radioactive substances. Only the nuclear regulatory commissions and those administrations have that, and they're not going to do it. And if they did criminalize it, they couldn't poison you in your hospitals anymore. Inhaling one hot particle can cause the cancer because it's in your body, pulsing energy every second. Your body attacks it and builds a tumor around it to try to contain it because it doesn't have an autoimmune trigger to defend against it, right? And another thing to remember is almost every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms, and all nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools because the fuel pools are no containment and they're still splitting atoms. So before Fukushima was 0.1 atom per kilogram was the maximum allowable limits. They raised the limit to 500. The Americans, Canadians, and Europe increased their limits post-Fukushima right away to 1,000 atoms per kilogram. Japan raised it to 500 atoms per kilogram. And what that meant was they would, and you see them saying it all the time, was that, well, it's not bad. The Americans are higher. The Europe is higher. So we're only half of theirs, so we're pretty good. We're pretty safe. And this was the industry. Okay, so another thing where you hear a lot of conversation about is tanks. And I'm going to roll you through the tank fable. I'm going to roll you through the tanks here in a second so you can wrap your mind around what's really going on with the tanks. I think I was sniffing too many fumes today. Starting to like it. Just kidding. Dana out with a brown paper bag full of fiberglass. Woohoo! All right, what am I looking for? Tanks. Stop fooling around. They'll chop that out and say, Dana's smoking, Dana's sniffing. So the story of the tanks at Fukushima was 1,000 tanks. Now, there's a couple of different variations of this story. Typical done nothing for 2 years to stop the highly radioactive water Fukushima leak. Everything is always a word that's a leak. 600,000 tons gets out. Oh, they had a leak. Water above a sievert per hour. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. So water above a sievert per hour, the time about per liter. So a couple of liters, you walk past it, will kill you. 1,000 years from now, the contaminated water from Fukushima may be still entering the Pacific Ocean. So it doesn't sound like it's all in the tanks, does it? Okay, so if you go back to 2013, August the 20th, they had 1,000 tanks. Mari Yamaguchi, of course. 2014, Mari Yamaguchi. 1,200 industrial tanks. In 2017, 900 tanks. 2019, in this line right here in the very beginning, 1,000 tanks. 2021, 1,000 tanks. Mari Yamaguchi, 2023. 1,000 tanks. So then they talk about the water filtration system, right? The ALPS system. So this was a story from February 11, 2013, and they had the press club came in there, And they were given handout photos, but they were also taking photos. And this was the ELP system. And so they never had no system to filter water, period. In 2013, but it was actually yeah, 2013. It was actually no, that's not it. Yeah, here. August 9, 2014. It just announced that they think they finally have the ELPS decontamination system operational. So that was the end of 2014. That was the end of 2014. Now, so let's talk about the water filtration system. Then I'm going to play a video after. There we go. This one here first. April 21st, 2014, TEPCO unable to bring contaminated water issues. The advanced liquid processing system has yet to function reliably. But I showed you one from August where the system still wasn't operational, right? But they also had the Arriva system, which was the same system basically, but it was the French system. August 12, 2014. For the last 3 years, the system was unused and kept out of operation. There was the bypass operation where they were going to catch the water coming down the mountains and pump it around the site directly into the ocean so it didn't go through the site and mix with the radiation. That didn't work. They were going to build a fence, they said, for $1 billion. This is simply the stupidest statement imaginable. You can't build a fence to stop radiation. It doesn't work that way. It's not like a sheep or a goat or a cow or something. It's radiation, right? The ice wall operation, of course, did not work because there's no top and no bottom, just like a fence. Now, officially, nothing got out. Nothing. Because they moved the goalpost last year and claimed nothing got out. The International Atomic Energy Agency did. Aerial surveys from the United States just after Fukushima, 1,000 feet above the ground, was showing 3 million atoms per square meter of iodine-131 20 miles away. So if nothing got out, why did they abandon all the communities, right? And then there was the Siri system and the Curion systems. Now the problem with radiation is all the atoms are the same size. And so you can't filter out radiation because all the atoms are the same size. I mean, really, it's actually that simple. There's nothing difficult about it. And so the Siri system was supposed to filter cesium-137. The Curion system was supposed to filter, because that's the propaganda they've been feeding you for 80 years. And so we're looking for that little video to play for you. It's a very important video. It's right here somewhere. There it is. So this is the BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes, reporting for the British Broadcasting Company in 2013. And he's going to tell you that all the tanks were filled in 2013. So if all the tanks were filled in 2013, how could they filter water and put it in the tanks when they're already filled?
The Fukushima plant sits smack in the middle of an underground aquifer. Deep beneath the ground, the site is rapidly being overwhelmed by water. Beneath the surface, water flows downhill and into the basement of the damaged reactor buildings. There it is contaminated with high levels of radiation. To stop the groundwater flowing on into the nearby ocean, engineers are building an underground barrier. But that is causing the groundwater level to rapidly rise. It's now so high the water will soon reach the surface. Then it will start flowing overground into the sea. This week, the company that owns Fukushima, TEPCO, made this disturbing admission.
We understand that this water discharge is beyond our control, and we do not think the current situation is good.
Outside experts say it's now clear TEPCO is incapable of handling the cleanup at Fukushima. It's time for the Japanese government to step in. The situation is already beyond what TEPCO can handle, he says. If it were possible to take proper measures, they would have done it already. It's not as if TEPCO is refusing to do what they can. They're doing everything they can, but there are no perfect solutions. Even if the government does step in, it's not clear what it can do. The only other solution is to pump out the contaminated groundwater and put it in storage tanks. But after just 2 years, the site is already jammed with more than 1,000 giant tanks. Most of them are already full up. At least 400 tons of new water pours into the site every day, and it's going to continue for years and years. Fukushima's water crisis has only just begun. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News in Tokyo.
So, my apologies, I ran out to grab some more water. All right, let's bring up the poll. Is Fukushima 4 reactors and 8 nuclear fuel pools that melted down? Chernobyl was a single reactor. Each fuel pool had around 8 reactor cores. And each reactor core was equal to 100 Chernobyls. And so they're not faking being in the reactors because it's like a banana and a potato chip, okay? And walking in sunshine. They're faking being in the reactors because this is an extinction level event. And it's time to gut up. It's time to come on board the winning team. Okay, so there's more to this story about the site. Let's talk about this site a little bit. And there was 726 pictures released. And in 2021, January 2021, they showed up. I found them on a Chinese site when I translated a Chinese story about Fukushima. And that was a bad translation. Couldn't make any sense. So I was scrolling through the story and seeing all these links at the bottom of the story. And they were to a PDF type file. And so I downloaded it and opened it up, and it was pictures. And the links were all to the TEPCO's website. And so there were 736 pictures got released from a drone very high up, but very good quality. When I zoomed in on the drone, super slow motion there tonight or what? We'll fix that. So when we zoomed in on the pictures, I said, holy shit, the reactors are all pixelated. Why would they release these pictures 10 years later? What's going on here? They tell perpetual laws, but yet they're releasing pictures on their website, TEPCO's website in Japan, and the pictures are all redacted. And then I spotted this one here. So that's reactor 4 right there. Then it's reactor 3, reactor 2 at the top left-hand corner is reactor 1. And I happen to know behind reactor 4 is the common spent fuel pool, which takes reactor cores from all 6 reactors on the site. And I was like, why, oh why, is the common spin fuel pool pixelated? I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. But this is on the same level as the other reactors. But it's not as tall as a building either. And it had around 12 million pounds of reactor fuel in the building. So it was right beyond reactor 4. This is reactor 4. So this is the original footage. And so clearly, this building doesn't exist. It was designed to survive an explosion, but not survive, but stay intact. And the joints you're seeing on the building, you can actually turn around an SUV on them. They're that big. They're meant to take an explosion, a criticality, an excursion event, so-called. So the tsunami ran through the reactors 1, 2, 3, and 4, and common spent fuel pool was at the same spot, but the common spent fuel pool is not as high. The fuel is down really low. So the tsunami ran right through there, which means it melted down. Now, they had no power. There's 1,200 miles of the site of the country was stripped up to 10 kilometers inland and dragged out to sea. And the rest of it was put through what can only be described as a wood chipper. The numbers you're seeing here in the red are people that are missing. The numbers in the yellow are people that are missing. The numbers in the red are people that got killed by the wood chipper. So it also caused detonations. And TEPCO had put out a call to the labor, the day working places, send us people who don't mind dying. So obviously they weren't asking for nuclear scientists or nuclear engineers or nuclear companies. In fact, Japan had 54 nuclear plants at the same time. Nobody volunteered to go to Fukushima. So they sent in the homeless, the destitute, the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language. And this is the common spent fuel pool, completely redacted. It's right alongside of reactor 3 that blew up, which is right here, and reactor 4, of course. Now the pictures also drew you a line to reactor 5 and 6. And when you got to reactor 6 and zoomed in, everything is pixelated. The pump house is pixelated, the reactors. Each reactor core is about 100 Cheronobyls because it's pure uranium, pure plutonium. So this was quite interesting. We got the common spent fuel pool that nobody's bothered acknowledging. We got reactor 6 completely. Now they're not pixelated just because they're bored. Something happened significantly, see? But there was another spot. That was the original map of the site. And I'm going to move myself over. And this spot right around here is completely pixelated out too. And the pictures they released in 2021, and I was using this as a landmark and a couple of other. Now right above it, as you can see, it's all pixelated. Where the red is to. And you can see I got a couple of buildings highlighted for you that are completely pixelated out. Why would you pixelate something up in the other end of the site? Because that's right up there. See that round circle? That's that thing right there. So this is original footage, satellite footage, just after Fukushima. Because the site looks significantly different today. So this is what it looks like today, right? It's daylight to dark. So what was really interesting was they drew you a line from the reactors straight back, because there's not very many pictures were released when you think about the number, and they drew you a line right back to this pixelation. How interesting is that? And they also drew you another line directly or down to reactor 5 and 6. And reactor 6 is completely pixelated, along with the fuel pool and the stack for the venting the fuel pool and the incinerators, right? So there's a lot more going on. Now typically I show you reactor 3 and 4 because I'm hoping that breaks the consciousness of the average person. And at the top of the buildings were 8 reactor cores of each of the buildings. So just a single reactor core from Fukushima, from what I understand about this, is worse than all known nuclear meltdowns on the planet combined. There was 4 of them melted down, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And officially, none of them now have melted down. That's the official story. None of this happened is the official story. That's as Twilight Zone as we get, isn't it? And it's because I showed you my research expeditions clearly show that this is an extinction level event. They're not pretending they're in reactor 4 because they're bored. They have something to hide. And this industry is very good at it. It has a lot of useful idiots out there. So, right, April the 6th, 3 weeks after Fukushima, 3 weeks after this, the media was out saying they plugged the reactor leak at Fukushima with liquid glass. What's that? It's a mixture of sawdust and newspaper, concrete, and liquid glass. So suggesting that they fixed this is only a leak. And now this picture was available. Whoever wrote the article would have seen this picture. And there was media worldwide doing stuff like this so that they were showing you all the footage of the tsunami. And let me show you some of that, actually. If we're lucky. Just bear with me. Sometimes I can find stuff and sometimes I can't. There we go. Looks like I can't. Yeah, I got no idea what I've done with it. Bashkuk Tunjuk. Bashkuk Tunjuk came out, he was a special rapporteur, came out and said that they shouldn't send people back to the nuclear wasteland, and he was attacked brutally for doing that. Let's have a listen to that.
His name is Mr. Bashkuk Tunjak.
Earlier this morning, the mandate issued a press release on the situation in Fukushima, and this is one of the cases that's mentioned in the report. In the press release, we're urging the Japanese authorities to halt the relocation of children and women of reproductive age to areas of Fukushima that exceed levels of radiation that were considered safe before the nuclear disaster. After the nuclear disaster, the government of Japan raised the acceptable level of exposure from 1 millisievert per year to 20 millisieverts per year. And we're quite concerned, in particular for the health and well-being of children who may be raised or born in Fukushima.
So Japan is so insane, they move people back into the nuclear wasteland. They move people back into the nuclear wasteland. And they have nothing but contempt for you. This is what makes it even worse, is they actually have they have nothing but contempt for you. So the original tsunami and broadcast was pretty traumatic, right? So the world got distracted, and rightfully so in many ways, by the horror of the... And you could even hear the voice of the broadcaster, the translator, can barely stop crying from crying.
The Japanese Prime Minister appeared on TV to put into play a plan they'd rehearsed for years.
We will secure the safety of the people of Japan, and in order to minimize the damage, the government will make every effort possible. And we ask the people of Japan to continue to be cautious and vigilant and keep tuned in to the reports on the television and radio. And we ask the people of Japan to act calmly.
Right, and so, you know, it's not hard for something like that to tug at your heartstrings, right? And there was a lot that went on in 2011. There was a lot going on. Let me give you a little list of it. 2011 was an exceptional year for news. You had the earthquake in Japan. After that, you had Osama bin Laden. That got the media's attention for a couple of months. Hussein Mubarak, Egypt president, there was riots and everything. He quit. There was major media for about a month. The Arab Spring started. Gaddafi was killed by the rebels. Very, 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 very vicious way to die. They actually shoved a 2x4 up his behind on live stream. Right? I don't want to describe how they went about it, but they done a live stream, right? And that was major news for about a month. Prince William married Catherine Middleton, and that was madness for about 6 weeks in the news, took over the world. The English riots after that hit their peak in London and then spread, and that took over the media. Apple co-founder Steve Jobs died. There's a lot of things to drag you away from Fukushima, wasn't it? The English riots began on the back of a peaceful protest over the police shooting. That was major media worldwide for 6 or 7 weeks. And the death is announced of North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. So there was some huge distractions. It was pretty easy to miss Fukushima. And a lot of this, like Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, Hussein Mubarak, Ben Ali fleeing Tunisia, start the Arab Spring, Gaddafi, the English riots. A lot of these could have been, were perfect for getting taken over the news cycles, right? Steve Jobs dying, North Korean leader dying, Prince William getting married. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had a year like that since for news, for major big news that took over the news cycle for extended periods. Pretty convenient, right? And they didn't want anybody talking about Fukushima, period. So new images were released. The Alps decontamination system under construction 2013. Now we know in August 2014 it still wasn't working. We also know from the BBC, Rupert Winfield-Hayes, I played a clip earlier, that all the tanks were filled. Like everything is going, but the tanks weren't even filled, folks. The tanks are there to manipulate you. Everything is going directly into the ocean. And the reason is because you're pouring water, first off, over a fuel pool, over a nuclear meltdown, rather. And so the water is lethal doses by the liter. If you fill up the tanks, you're talking about 1.4 million sieverts. it means you can't get back on the site and build another tank or do anything else. If you had 1,000 tanks of that filled there, the Bremsstrahlung effect would have been so vicious, which is the breaking of the isotopes. You're traveling at the speed of light. When they hit each other, they don't mingle. They hit each other and change direction. And that's known as a break-in effect. And it's also known as an X-ray. And so everybody will be getting massive full-body X-rays. You can't get, the whole site is hemorrhaging radiation 24 hours a day, into the air, into the water, and you can't contain it. Because when they blew up, you threw fuel pools and reactor cores all over the site. These are lethal doses everywhere. So the people that are working there don't have the education, unfortunately, right? They're victims of society. They don't have the ability to understand what they're doing, because otherwise you can't get them to go there. And crazy censorship this week, because we're starting to try to do expeditions. We've failed. I fail a lot. A lot of times I'll fail. I'm always trying to do the right thing, right? But I don't always succeed. And I just blew what was left of my my survival money for this month coming up, in order to get this operation up and running, get out and start doing some research. And I've always done that, right? The fuck with it. We got to do it. We're going to do it. And it's madness, right? This is madness. And I've been stalked and attacked and demonized and vilified, and it means nothing to me. This is so important that we get the truth. And the truth will set us free, so to speak, but the truth is also that this is an extinction level event. They're not pretending the buildings didn't melt down because they're like bananas. This is an extinction level event. And so I've been at this for a very long time, and I'm not able to find anybody else out there having this conversation, educating the population. And then on top of that, I'm very compelled to do research. But this is freaking labor intensive and it's expensive. There's no shortcuts either, because whenever you're going on a boat, no matter where it's to, you're risking your life each time, right? There's a lot of the industry out there hates my guts. So we're going to walk you through some pictures and videos actually of today, because we finally got the boat ready. That's pretty rough looking. I wasn't sure if I could save that. And so as you grab it, it just flakes apart and falls. It was a nightmare. And so that was round 5 right there. And that is solid as a rock, man. You got to like it. That's fixed forever. That's the only wood on the entire boat. And so that's fixed. That's the end of that. So I'll put the motors back on it tomorrow. And if it's not raining too hard, I got a cabin, so I don't even give a fuck. So I went out and picked up, I exchanged, hang on. So it's Thursday. And I was supposed to get a 957 milliliter. I was going to buy 2 of those containers. But they're basically $60. That one is $60. It comes with fiberglass and cups and a few other things, right? So I took that one. But on their website, it was 957 rather for $35. And I was like, awesome, because I got 9 feet by 3.5 feet of cloth already, right? And so this morning I went down and picked that up. To hell with it. And got to work, right? Came back, and because we had heavy rain all day yesterday, took the cabin off and started trying to access it, you can see what it looks like. It's pretty friggin' depressing, right? It's like, oh my God. Just, oh jeez, this is a nightmare. And we need the boat. That's the only wood on the boat. So if I can fix that, everything else is hunky-dory. It's not clean. I got to clean everything up. I'll get there. Usually with this, you got to just put the mask on. I got a good mask, and you just scrub it with gasoline. Most of the dirt will come off the first round.
It's a nightmare.
I'm
going to just peel off what I can along here that's poking out. It's poking out, and then put fiberglass in it, and then put the cloth mat, a few layers of cloth mat over it, and then tie it into the floor. So I got to vacuum everything up here in a minute. Get the vacuum ready to go. Vacuum everything up, and then put some support down like halfway up on the inside and on the outside, as long as I don't interfere with the leg, right? But I don't think, because of the material, that I can just put a piece of wood there and get it to work. So
yeah, like how do I fit a piece of wood into this, right? You can't screw it in, you can't nail it in. You don't want to make it any thicker because you're going to mount 2 motors on it, right? So you have to go the whole length.
Alrighty, so
I got that welded up. Or you can call it welded, I suppose. I'm having problems with my mask, eh? So we had a problem where that shifted. So it's not shifting no more.
Slide ahead on me anymore.
I measured out the shaft from the back of the trailer on both sides. And this is what I'm talking about. If I hit it with gasoline, that'll come off. I'll clean that up. I got a steamer too, right? A small handheld steamer.
The first coat.
So this was the first coat.
Fiberglass. I'm going to grind that off here and put the second coat on.
That was so rough.
I'm going to grind it off, put the second coat on. And then we're going to put the laminate, the cloth all the way down.
Yeah, it's actually incredible how good it came out.
Down.
I'm a little bit shocked.
And then
I got to do that too, right?
These pieces of plywood,
so they don't get water damage. Because I got them now cut out. I got a fiberglass that.
Alright, so we ran out of fiberglass.
It was round
but
4.
That's probably okay just like it is.
It's incredible tough now.
So now we're going to I just sanded everything down one last time. And when I put the cloth on it, fiberglass cloth and the resin on it, that'll restore it back to good enough.
I'm tickled pink that it worked.
I got no more fiberglass.
It's a ridiculous amount of work.
I got no more money.
We got her.
I'm okay with this. This is not going to give up. This is very...
And so vacuum everything up. Don't ask me, I don't know.
Okay, so that's going to go over everything. And then...
start shaping it in, right? That was a nightmare. My other cloth is way better to work with. I shouldn't have used that this morning.
There you go.
Well, I didn't get to use that till this afternoon, actually. That was a nightmare to work with.
I almost done it.
I had to go out and buy more
hard tacks will clean it with
more equipment
utility knife with the box
to
cutter.
apply it. And so when I came back, everything was solid. That was it. It was a lot of work.
Now the other stuff, the other matting is not like this. It's actual cloth.
Because I got 2 layers of the other matting.
You won't notice the
now.
difference when I'm finished. But we are definitely almost there. With the tires back on. So I got to weld that. I got to weld that on.
Defender.
That.
I got to weld it on, and I'm gonna do fiberglass tomorrow morning.
I can't remember the names of them now. The wheel weld, right?
The I'll come out with
Defender.
Fiberglass.
I think I might fiberglass it into place.
That's what I'm gonna do. So I got it tacked on.
I got that tacked on. I'm gonna fiberglass.
I'm gonna fiberglass that stuff.
That on
both sides.
Lights
you got the light is hooked up.
And that's the last coat.
That's the last.
I'm putting on. This is pretty freaking solid. I kind of screwed up a whole bunch, but that was only on the last 2 coats, so there's 8 coats. And I'm not worried about it.
I might do another coat next week or something.
At all?
Spring is coming.
It's almost 8 o'clock.
Spring will be here next week or the week after.
Show starts in 2 hours. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, this was 2 hours ago before I started.
I'm going to stop.
My phone stopped.
Put the rest of it away.
What a mess my back.
Still got to come out early in the morning and mix up a batch to fiberglass defenders.
We're finished though.
We'll stick to both. If the weather's good tomorrow,
so that'll be dry when I wake up. That's dry now, most likely. It'll be
dry
when I wake up in the morning.
And take off.
And I'm not even going to hit it with the sander. I'm going to put the mounts for the motors on the back.
I'll recuperate overnight. My back.
I might grind it down a little bit and wipe it down with some gas.
But I just worked through it, and so
we're done.
So I'm going to shut this down. And then we'll fiberglass defenders on tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's all I got left to do is fiberglass defenders. I'm going to do the bottom and the top. Because the fender is so thin, I got the 2 welders I got will burn holes in it, basically. And I'm sick of friggin' messing with it. So I'll go and grind it down. And then I'll stick fiberglass top and bottom with some cloth. And that'll be the end of that. That ain't going over ever again. And the boat's ready. So in the morning, that's good to go. I might do some grinding in a few days, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's fine. The motor's... Because there's a mount that screws onto the back and the front. Right? So I'll screw that on with normal screws and just mount the motors on. And when I get a chance, then I'll tidy everything up. But we need it functional, and we got it functional, right? And it's unbelievably solid. It's unimaginably solid. So I'm very, very happy. I mean, to go from that nightmare to that, and then time to put all the other stuff onto it. Yeah, pretty cool. But I never ate the whole friggin' day. I had a little tiny snack just before I went live. All I wanted to do was finish the job. I wanted the boat in the water, and today was a perfect day. It got up to almost 30 degrees today. And I had to spend it all fighting with the boat. We got her though now, so I don't care. I was definitely worried this morning when I started. I was like, I don't know if we can actually fix that. And the fiberglass came through. It's a lot of work, but it's just because I don't really... years ago I'd done a lot of it, but it's years ago, so I don't really remember. I forget all the little tricks. And I mean, I done a lot of it when I was young. But that's another life, that's another time. So we're going to close the poll down. That's the show for tonight. We got 24 likes, did we? Hey, if you work hard for 13 years, you too can get 24 likes. Right, Nuclear? Is Fukushima 4 reactor and 8 nuclear fuel pool meltdowns the radioactive fallout and extinction level event? I guess I could have done better of framing that particular narrative. You got to realize how tired I was. I came in and I was like, we got to get a show, some kind of show out there. So that's fantastic. We got 30 votes, 24 likes. Thanks, everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. I remind people that I can't do anything. unless we raise some money. I'm completely tapped out. And so there's links in the description. We still got to fuel everything, right? I got fuel for the motors, but I can't just go running everywhere at this stage, unfortunately, because I'm not independently wealthy. And so we got to raise money. That's the bottom line. There's 2 links below in the description. Yeah, reactor 4 wasn't empty. No reactor is empty. They just take out a third of the fuel, right? Okay, that's it for Dana. I'm burnt out. All I can think about right now is sleeping and getting up in the morning and trying again, right? Because we are going to conquer this, and then we're going to get busy. Have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow. Have a great weekend. And hugs for you and your loved ones and your friends and your families and your pets. Have a great night. We'll see everybody soon. Take care, folks.
Remember 2 great cities in a distant foreign land, when scorched from the face of earth their power of Japan. Be careful, my dear brother, don't take away the joy, but use it for the good of man and never to destroy. Atomic power was given by the mighty hand of God. Atomic power, it was given by the mighty hand of God. Hiroshima, Nagasaki paid a big price for their sin. When scorched from the face of earth, their battle could not win. But on that day of judgment, when comes a greater power, we will not know the minute, and we'll not know the hour. Atomic power was given by the mighty hand of God. Atomic power, it was